We already told the kids they're moving in, Jeremy said like he was sharing good news. You'll love the company, Mom. I had just poured my morning coffee. The mug was still warm in my hands. I hadn't even sat down yet when he walked in and dropped it like that, as if we'd already talked about it, agreed on it, signed some invisible contract. You what? I asked, careful not to spill my coffee. He grinned. Me, Felice, the kids, and her mom? We're all coming. There's more than enough space here. I blinked. The boxes in the hallway hadn't even been unpacked. I hadn't had time to hang a single photo. The smell of fresh paint still lingered in the living room. Felice's mom, Jeremy, kept talking, like I hadn't said anything. It'll be good for everyone. The boys can explore the yard and Felice's mom can help out in the kitchen. You'll finally have some noise around here again. That's what they thought. I missed noise. I walked slowly to the kitchen table, sat down, and took a sip of coffee that now tasted bitter. You're moving in. When? He shrugged. End of the week, maybe sooner. We've already told the kids. They're excited. He smiled like he was proud of the decision. I stared at him. This man I had raised, this boy I had stayed up with through fevers who used to cry when he forgot his homework. Now he stood in my kitchen, claiming a house he hadn't helped pay for, hadn't even helped me move into. Felice had said nothing. She'd just smiled when they first visited, glancing around the house like it was hers already. Now I realized why. They hadn't just assumed I'd say yes, they'd never even considered I'd say no. Jeremy reached for a slice of bread from the counter, casual, like everything was settled. And I just sat there, holding the cup I hadn't let go of since he spoke. 2 days later, the group text came. I didn't buy this house to fill it with other people's noise. I bought it for the silence I had earned. After Clay died, the old house felt too big, too heavy. Every creaking floorboard was a memory I wasn't ready to carry anymore. I'd built that place with him, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. We made decisions around kitchen counters and mortgage rates. We hosted birthday parties in the backyard, put up Christmas lights that barely held through the cold. And when he passed, I stayed a few more years because I didn't know how to leave the last place where his voice still echoed. But eventually, I did. I sold the house, packed up 40 years of life into labeled boxes, and moved into a cottage near the edge of town. Small enough to manage, bright enough to breathe. It had a sunroom where I could read, a kitchen I could clean in 10 minutes, a porch just wide enough for one rocking chair, a small table, and my mug of coffee. I worked until 67 long after most of my friends had retired. I never took those yearly cruises or bought leather bags from catalogs. I drank coffee from the same dented thermos for 3 decades and wore the same coat every winter. I said no to extras because I was saving for this peace. And then Jeremy showed up and made it sound like this was some community asset, a shared prize. He didn't see the sweat tucked behind the down payment or the way my knees ached from walking up school stairs at 65. He didn't see Clay's photo tucked in my nightstand drawer. He saw an opportunity. I tried to tell myself maybe he didn't mean harm. Maybe it was thoughtlessness, not greed. But then the message came through, blinking on my screen like a bad joke. The message came in while I was deadheading the roses out front. Jeremy, family chat. See you Friday. Mom, we're bringing the dog too. I read it 3 times just to be sure. Not can we come. Not would that work for you, Mom? Just see you Friday. I stood there, pruning shears in hand, hands trembling slightly. Not from the weight, but from something else entirely. I walked back into the house, set the phone on the counter, and stared at it, as if more words might appear. But that was it. 1 sentence and a smiley face. The final nail in a decision they'd made without me. Later that afternoon, I found out Felice had already given notice on their apartment. Their lease was ending Thursday. I only found out because her landlord is married to my old co-worker from the district office. Small town. Loose lips. And apparently, it wasn't a secret. Felice's mother, who I hadn't seen in person in over a year, had told her prayer group she was finally moving lakeside. Finally. Like it was owed. Like it was promised. I didn't even know she'd ever seen this house. Then to top it off, my grandson, Ryder, posted a photo on his story, one of those disappearing 24-hour ones, probably assuming I wouldn't see it. But I did. It was a selfie of him in their living room, boxes half-packed behind him. The caption read, "Moving into Grandma's fancy house, LOL." There was no malice in it, just assumption. Just the kind of casual entitlement that doesn't even recognize itself. That's what hit me hardest. Not the logistics, not the inconvenience. It was how completely absent I was from the equation. No one had asked me what I wanted. No one had even thought to. They'd already decided who belonged here, and I wasn't on the list. I turned off my phone, walked into the living room, and sat in the only chair I hadn't unpacked yet. And as I sat there, in that half-settled home, I remembered every single thing I'd done for them. I've never kept a running total. I didn't count the hours, the miles, the checks. That's not why you do things for your children. You do it because that's what mothers do. You show up over and over, even when no one notices. When Jeremy got engaged, I wrote a check for $12,000. I remember the exact number because I had to pull some from my emergency fund. He looked so relieved when I handed it over. "We'll pay you back," he said. Of course they never did. I never asked. Then came the kids. Felice wanted to finish her master's in education, so I adjusted my schedule. I took half days at work, rearranged appointments, and watched the boys every Thursday and Friday, sometimes weekends too, so she could attend classes. They called it help. I called it exhausting, but I smiled, packed snacks, and told bedtime stories. When Jeremy threw out his back and missed a week of work, I covered the hospital deductible. I remember the bill, $842.64. I paid it without a word and brought over soup the next day. Felice said I was a lifesaver. I believed her. I hosted every holiday, even the ones they didn't stay for. I made 2 types of stuffing because Felice didn't like onions. I set the table, ironed the napkins, and kept gifts tucked away for the boys. Last Christmas, they arrived 3 hours late, stayed for 25 minutes, and left before dessert. Jeremy kissed my cheek on the way out and said, "We'll do something longer next year." And now they send group texts about moving in without so much as a phone call. They act like I should be grateful they're choosing my house. As if it's a favor. As if I should be excited to give up my space, my quiet, my boundaries. Felice even told someone at church that it would be more efficient if I moved to the smaller room since she's expecting more overnight guests. They don't say thank you anymore. They say, "Well, you've got the space." And in their minds, that's enough. I called Jeremy the next morning. I didn't sleep much the night before, just stared at the ceiling fan and ran through conversations I hadn't had yet. My voice was calm when he picked up, maybe too calm. "You didn't ask me," I said. There was a pause on the line, then a tired sigh. "Mom, it's not a big deal. It is to me. We're just talking about a few months. We'll help out around the house. It'll be good for everyone. You've got space, and let's be honest, you hate being alone." I blinked hard, staring at the mug in my hand. The one he used to draw me pictures on when he was 7. I don't hate being alone. I chose it. "Well," he said, chuckling softly, "you won't be for long." Later that day, they came by to drop off a few things. I stood in the doorway as Felice brushed past me, already talking about paint samples and closet organizers. "Mom can take the smaller bedroom. It's closer to the bathroom anyway." And Jeremy snores. She said it like it was already settled. I walked into the kitchen to clear my head and found a paper sitting on the counter. Not hidden, not folded, just sitting there like a list for groceries. Mom's room, guest bed, move dresser, paint walls, sage green, new rug. They hadn't just assumed I would say yes. They had already begun rearranging my life like I was a piece of furniture to be shifted, repurposed, minimized. I stood there for a long time just looking at those words. The handwriting was Felice's tidy and efficient. Nothing cruel, just practical. Cold in its efficiency. I didn't say anything then. I just walked upstairs and shut the door to my bedroom, the one they were planning to repaint without asking. It wasn't rage I felt. Not yet. It was something quieter, like a warning bell ringing low in my chest. Something that told me this isn't a misunderstanding. This is a removal. I didn't argue. Not after the list. Not after Felice's offhand comments or Jeremy's dismissive shrug. I didn't yell or cry or throw anything. I simply smiled. And then I got to work. The first call I made was to Lita, my lawyer. She picked up on the second ring. "Tell me you didn't put it under your personal name," she said before I could finish the story. I smiled, the first real one in days. "No," I said. "It's in the LLC, the one we registered under my maiden name." "Good," she said. "Then they can't touch it." After we hung up, I changed every password, email security system, garage door opener. I bought 3 new outdoor cameras and had them installed before dinner. Motion activated with cloud backups. If someone so much as stepped onto the porch, I'd see it. Then I opened my laptop and logged into Airbnb. The profile had been idle since I first set it up, just in case. But I'd taken professional photos when I moved in, staged every room, even listed nearby attractions like the antique bookstore and Saturday farmers market. I updated the description, checked availability, and set the rate a little higher than necessary. Lake views, private porch, newly renovated kitchen, 2-month minimum, no pets. Within an hour, I had 4 requests. By the next morning, the entire period was booked, paid in full. I sat at the table with my coffee and watched the confirmation emails come in one by one like little pieces of proof that this house, my house, was still mine. They expected me to be waiting in the doorway with open arms. Let them knock. Let them text. Let them stand outside with their boxes and their dog and their grand plans. The door would stay locked. They pulled up exactly at 3:42 p.m. on Friday. Minivans stuffed to the roof. Suitcases, plastic bins, the dog barking in the back seat. The boys tumbled out first, barefoot and shouting. Felice followed already on the phone, with someone waving her hand toward the house like she was giving a tour. Her mother got out last, holding a tray of covered dishes like she was arriving for Sunday dinner. I watched from the upstairs window until they reached the front door. Jeremy tried his old key first. When it didn't turn, he frowned, jiggled it harder. Then he tried the garage code. Nothing. Felice pressed the doorbell twice. I waited until the 3rd ring before walking down. When I opened the door, I only cracked it. Felice smiled like this was just a small misunderstanding. "Hey, Mom. Garage isn't opening. Did you reset the code?" Jeremy stepped forward. "Can we just come in and talk?" "We've got the kids and I rented the house," I said simply. There was a beat of silence. "What?" Felice asked, blinking. "I rented it," I repeated. "On Airbnb. Starting next morning." "You didn't tell us that," Jeremy said, voice rising. "You didn't tell me you were coming," I said. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door gently behind me. I handed Jeremy a folded piece of paper, 3 nearby hotel options with check-in times and phone numbers. "I figured you'd want options," I said. Felice's mother let out a small gasp. The boys stared. The dog whined. Jeremy looked down at the list, then back up at me like he didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. "You can't be serious," he said. "I am," I said, and I didn't blink. "The new guests arrive tomorrow at noon. I'd like the driveway cleared before then." Felice's mouth opened, then closed. Her mother turned away in disgust. One of the boys asked if they could still use the backyard. I didn't answer. I walked back inside and closed the door behind me. Quietly, firmly. The phone started ringing before I made it to the stairs. The phone didn't stop ringing all weekend. Jeremy called 12 times in the first hour. I didn't answer once. Each voicemail sounded a little more desperate than the last until they stopped altogether. Then came the texts from Felice. You're being cruel. I don't know who you've become. The kids are confused and hurt. Is that what you wanted? I muted the thread. On Sunday morning, I made my coffee and brought it out to the garden chair under the old maple tree. That's when I saw it. Felice's mother had posted on Facebook. Someone from the neighborhood association forwarded it to me. So heartbreaking when an elderly woman pushes her own family away just for attention. Some people age with grace. Others choose bitterness. 57 likes. 14 comments. All from women who'd never once spoken to me directly. I stared at the screen for a long time, then took a screenshot and saved it into a folder I'd already named Documentation. Just in case. Cruel. Bitter. Attention-seeking. It was funny in a way. For years, they'd taken everything I gave them and called it love. Now, the first time I said no, really said no, they called it cruelty. But I didn't feel cruel. I felt clear. And for the first time in years, I also felt rested. I walked around the garden slowly, sipping my coffee, checking the new rosebuds. The Airbnb guests had settled in just fine. They sent a message thanking me for the fresh flowers on the table and the handwritten welcome note. No one complained about the lack of space. No one tried to change the locks. No one told me where I should sleep. Later that afternoon, a new envelope arrived in the mail. The return address was familiar Jeremy's office. I let the envelope sit on the counter for nearly an hour before I opened it. The handwriting on the front was his neat, familiar, trying too hard to stay professional. Inside was a single typed page signed at the bottom. It wasn't an apology. It was a suggestion. Let's have a conversation about boundaries. He used words like misunderstanding and miscommunication, and he ended it with a gentle nudge about doing what's best for the boys. I folded the letter in half and set it aside. The next morning, I wrote my own. I typed it because I wanted every word to be clear. No emotion. No room for misreading. I started by listing the money I had given them over the past 10 years. Wedding, $12,000. Medical bill, $842.64. Emergency childcare, $3,200 in lost wages. Grad school support, $2,400 in supplies, meals, and transportation. Holiday gifts, travel stipends, and miscellaneous approximately $6,000 total, over $24,000. And that didn't include the time, the labor, the meals cooked, or beds made. Then I stated simply and without apology that the home was not available for residency, temporary or otherwise, that the house was owned by a legally protected entity under my name, and that no one outside of a lease agreement was permitted on the property. Lastly, I enclosed a cashier's check for $200, the estimated cost of 1 month's rent in their area. One final gift. I signed it with my full name, sealed it in a certified envelope, and dropped it off at the post office myself. By the time I returned home, the sun had dipped low behind the trees. I brewed a cup of coffee, stood by the kitchen window, and watched the lights come on in the guest bedroom. My guests were home. Jeremy didn't reply. Not that day, not the next. But I heard through the grapevine that Felice was telling people I'd cut them off completely. And maybe I had. Or maybe for the first time I'd finally drawn a line. I woke before the sun. No alarm. No footsteps overhead. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft creak of old wood as I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The floors were cold under my feet, but I didn't mind. I moved through the house slowly, letting each step remind me that I was alone and safe. No toys scattered in the hallway. No voices calling my name. No one filling the kitchen before I'd had a chance to be quiet. I brewed my coffee in silence the way I like it. Black, strong, no interruptions. The steam rose as I carried the mug to the porch, settling into the chair that finally felt like it belonged to me again. Outside, the trees stood still, not even a breeze yet. A hummingbird dipped low near the feeder. The air hadn't warmed, but it held the promise of a clean day. The phone buzzed on the table beside me. A voicemail. I already knew who it was from. I picked it up, looked at the screen, and listened to the first few seconds. Mom, we didn't mean it like that. It just got out of hand. I deleted it. I didn't need to hear the rest. I didn't need a rewritten version of what I'd already lived. They hadn't meant harm, maybe. But harm had still arrived with bags packed and furniture labeled and rooms reassigned without consent. What I needed now was exactly what I had: space. I leaned back in the chair and took a slow sip. The warmth spread through my chest and I exhaled without even realizing I'd been holding my breath. The doorbell didn't ring. No one shouted my name from the driveway. And the porch, bathed in early gold light, stretched out ahead of me like a clean sheet. For the first time in a long time, I felt no weight on my shoulders, just air, just freedom, just me.